Prof, good afternoon to you. Was this an unforeseen or very much expected announcement from Nigeria today?
Good afternoon to you, sir, and good afternoon to the viewers. No, I think that if you look at the size of the population of Nigeria, which is over 190 million, we would expect that there would be some logistical glitches. But having said that, the concern is the government knew a long time ago, and the Independent Electoral Commission also knew a long time ago that they were going to have an election. And of course, they've held elections before, and they would then by now know what kinds of logistical support they need for them to deliver a credible election. So now the question is, why didn't they take precautionary measures to ensure that come the day of the elections, they will be ready for that? But I think that as much as Yakubu is saying that they are postponing the elections on logistical reasons, my thinking is that the political situation is also not stable at the moment, and Boko Haram has also been causing havoc in the country. They might not be outright to spell out those things because that is the area where government is supposed to operate. So then they have to focus on logistical issues as the Electoral Commission. But I think that the situation could have been avoided and the elections could have gone on the scheduled date, not to postpone it for a later date, as it is the case currently.
The reaction from the political parties has been swift today. The opposition saying that this announcement by the Electoral Commission is in fact meant to help President Muhammadu Buhari steal the election or prolong his stay in power. Buhari's party saying that it's quite a disappointment. So what does this delay then mean for the credibility of the elections should they go ahead next week?
There's going to be a problem, my brother, because if you look at the sitting president, General Muhammadu Buhari, if he happens to lose the election next week, he will then cry foul and say, had the elections happened on the scheduled date, he would have won. And the same thing will come also from Atiku Abubakar, who will also claim that the reason why he has lost the election is because the sitting president has used state institutions to make sure that he doesn't emerge victorious in the election. So basically, either way, one of the two leading candidates is likely to complain in the event that it doesn't emerge victorious. So postponing the election, not only in Nigeria, anywhere in Africa, when you postpone an election, we are inviting more trouble because then emotions run high and speculations are all over. By the time you hold the elections, the credibility of that election is put into question. So basically, Nigeria has not done itself a good service by postponing the election. Although from the Electoral Commission side, they will say they had to postpone the election to make sure that when they eventually deliver the election, they deliver credible and trustworthy election. But then, of course, there will always be the other side of the coin.
Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation, biggest economy on the continent at the moment. They are oil rich, yet not all Nigerians benefit from its resources. Is there any hope at this point that under another term for President Buhari or Atiku Abubakar that the situation could change, or is this just another exercise in democracy because elections are part of the process?
There is no guarantee. There is always optimism that when a new president takes over, you expect that things are going to change for the better. But then for those of us who understand Nigerian politics quite well, you will understand that the north-south divide is always a problem. In other words, we have the north, which is predominantly Muslim, and then we have the south, which is predominantly Christian. And this thing has been going on for years, and it's going to dissipate anytime soon, regardless of who the president is. Whether the president comes from the south or comes from the north, these problems will continue. The second problem also comes from the Niger Delta, which is where most of the oil comes from. And as you correctly pointed out, Nigeria's economy is dependent on oil. It is not as diversified as South Africa's economy is. It's reliant on oil. So the moment you have problems in the Niger Delta, then it means that the economy of the country is not going to grow at the level you expect it to grow. So basically then all it means is that the president who takes over office after the election will have to have good relations with the different formations who are stationed in the Niger Delta. And the problem with that is that they are not a homogeneous group. It's a wide range of groupings and also you have traditional leaders who also wield some power in the Niger Delta. So if you are a president and you are not in good terms with one or two of those formations, you are therefore facing a problem that the oil that comes from that region is going to be a liability to the government as opposed to it benefiting government. Because there are people who are drilling oil from these oil tanks, and then they are selling such oil in the black market. So which means then that the economy of the country will not grow at the level it should grow. So it doesn't matter who the president is, the problem will still exist.
And Professor Mgomezulu, I want to go back to something else that you highlighted, and this is of great concern in Nigeria's northeast, the Boko Haram insurgency. Thousands of people killed by the group. We had those Chibok schoolgirls who were abducted at a point. When you look at the strategies of both Buhari and Abubakar, who seems best placed to be able to finally defeat Boko Haram once and for all?
It's very difficult to defeat Boko Haram once and for all, for the simple reason that they keep changing their tactics, and they also keep changing the reason behind their actions. When Boko Haram started, because by definition, Boko Haram means that Western education is evil. So they started off from the premise of saying that anything Western will not be accepted in Nigeria. Be it Western culture, be it Western religion, they are not going to accept it because they want to have an Islamic state which uses Sharia law. And what then got confusing was when they started killing some of the Muslim clerics. So that raises the question then, what is it that they are standing for, or what is it that they are fighting for? Because if the argument is that they don't want Christianity because it is associated with the West, then you would expect them at least to spare the lives of the Muslim clerics. But they kill them nonetheless. And then you look at the areas where they operate, they kill police officers regardless of whether they are Muslim or Christian, so which means that they are going to kill just because they want to send a message to the government. So whether you have Muhammadu Buhari retaining his position as president, or you have the new president in Atiku Abubakar, the reality is that Boko Haram is going to continue causing havoc. Of course, when Muhammadu Buhari took office, one of the promises he made was that he was going to make sure that Boko Haram disappears for good. You might argue and say there have been attempts to try and weaken Boko Haram, but it has not died down yet. Just recently, we heard of about 66 people who were killed, and most of them are women and children. And then we have heard of a number of police stations that were raided. We had a number of markets that were attacked. So basically, this thing goes on. So the point, therefore, is whether you have Atiku Abubakar or whether you have Muhammadu Buhari, Boko Haram will still remain a menace, not only, by the way, to Nigeria, but to the neighboring states as well. Cameroon is not safe. Niger is not safe. Chad is not safe for as long as Boko Haram is in action.
All right, Professor Mgomezulu will no doubt have you on at a later date as we continue to watch those elections in Nigeria closely. For now, thank you so much for your time. That was the University of Cape Town's, or University of the Western Cape's political science professor Bheki Mgomezulu speaking to us from our Cape Town studios today. That is it.